final roundtable meeting of the year. Thank you all for being here.
Recording in progress.
So welcome. As a reminder, tonight's meeting will have hybrid access with members attending in person and the public welcome to attend in person or remotely. For members of the public who wish to speak to the membership, please fill out a speaker's slip located at the entrance. If you're attending remotely, please use the Zoom raise hand feature to be recognized during public comment. And I just want to share with the members, and most of us have brought laptops or iPads, that I found that because our screen is so far away, you can log on to the meeting from your iPad and laptop and see the presentation better. So let's proceed with roll call. Diane, please proceed with roll call and confirm if we have a quorum.
Thank you, Chair. City and County of San Francisco Board of Supervisors, absent. City and County of San Francisco Mayor's Office,
Present.
City and County of San Francisco Airport Commission, San Mateo County Board of Supervisors,
Present.
CCAG Airport Land Use Commission, absent. Town of Atherton, City of Belmont, absent. City of Brisbane, City of Burlingame, Town of Colma, absent. City of Daly City, absent. City of East Palo Alto, absent. City of Foster City, City of Half Moon Bay,
Patrick Johnson. Present.
Town of Hillsborough,
Present.
City of Menlo Park, absent. City of Millbrae,
Stephen Rinaldi. Present.
City of Pacifica, absent. Town of Portola Valley, City of Redwood City, absent. City of San Bruno, absent. City of San Carlos, absent. City of San Mateo, absent. City of South San Francisco,
Martin Nagales here.
Town of Woodside. Thank you, Chair. We have a quorum.
Great. Thank you very much, Diane. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. The next item on the agenda is public comment on items not on the agenda. This is an opportunity for the public to address the roundtable on matters not listed. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes, and note that while roundtable members can't discuss or act on these items tonight, your input is always valued and listened to. Diane, do you have instructions for public comment not on the agenda?
Yes, for members of the public who wishes to speak on tonight's agenda, please make sure to use the Zoom raise hands feature or press *9 on Zoom to indicate your desire to speak. Currently, there is a few Zoom raised hands.
Okay.
Okay. First, Ms. Darlene Yapley. Ms. Yapley, please go ahead.
The Aviation Noise and Emissions Symposium is March 9th through 11th in Las Vegas. It includes a first-time 3-hour AAM training that will cover many of the questions raised at the October TWG, including what communities can do, what decisions they can make, and how they can be included. It's a fast way to get up to speed on the latest in AAM. Here is an example of sessions. I covered more of the AAM ones at the TWG, but I'm going to give her a broader view, which is the latest research on aircraft noise and sleep disturbance, drones and airport sharing drone practices and considerations, a consultant on drone package delivery, and a lawyer on the latest regulations. Noise reduction, further potential promising procedures, and other current concepts. AAM impacts, NASA's recent research on the AAM noise, the City of Orlando on how they're doing local environmental review, and a community member on the lived experience of impacts that should be incorporated in local reviews. And then front lines of the airport noise office, perspectives, practices, and possibilities. There's a sponsorship option for the AAM training that would allow the entire roundtable and your communities to attend for consideration. In the past year, several members have attended, including Chair Royce. 1 year, a group attended together, members Royce, Hindi, Schneider, staffers Kathleen Wentworth and Linda Wolin, among others. Bert, Marie Jo, and I serve on the program committee. please consider attending. At a minimum, I encourage Vanessa to attend. And 12/31, December 31 is the end of the early bird pricing. Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. And staff will be sending information about that symposium to all the members of the roundtable.
Thank you. Now we have Mr. John Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, please go ahead.
Welcome, Mr. Hamilton.
Yes, thank you. I'm with class over on Bay Farm Island in Alameda and on the Oak Noise Forum. I'd welcome the opportunity to learn more about what the San Francisco Roundtable is planning to do in terms of providing language to city leaders regarding vertiports for electric helicopters and any related issues that might cause noise disturbances to homeowners caused by this new form of air transport. And in addition, if there's an FAA representative present at the meeting, I'd like to learn more about the MD-11 grounding due to the UPS crash. It has a lot to do with the late at night cargo planes that transit Oakland Airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. And please tune in to the rest of the meeting. We do have a report on advanced air mobility later on the agenda.
Thank you. There are no other public speakers at this time.
Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Next, we'll move on to approve the consent items. We have 3 items on the consent agenda: approval of the SFO Community Roundtable minutes from our October 1st meeting, acceptance of SFO's Airport Directors Report for September and October, and acceptance of the HMMH FAA IFP Information Gateway from October. Are there any members of the public or any members on the committee who want to pull any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Is there a second? Oh, thank you, Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Moving on. We'll now move on to the chairman update. As we close out 2025, I want to express my deep appreciation to our roundtable members, all of you who fight traffic and to get here and work in such a dedicated way on this committee. Our agency partners, thank you very much to Bert and your staff, and of course to our director and your staff. A deep appreciation to Vanessa Lee for her leadership and hard work, and to Diane. And to Jean and HMMH. Thank you so much. Whether you've been reviewing technical materials or participating in committee discussions or bringing forward community concerns, because we'd like to thank the community as well. Your efforts have helped us make some meaningful progress, and I think we're continuing to do that in addressing aircraft noise issue. This year we've focused both on the programs we already have in place, such as the Fly Quiet program, and we're looking ahead to new technologies that could shape our skies in the years to come. And we'll have a presentation on that later. Looking ahead, 2026 is going to be a pivotal year. So thank you so much I hope that all of you are continuing with this committee as we begin crafting the Roundtable's long-term strategic plan that will guide our work over the next 5 years. Tonight's meeting helps lay the foundation for that plan, and we'll before we move into our next item, are there any members of the Roundtable who will not be on this committee next year that we are saying goodbye to, or is everyone continuing? Good news. That's great. So we'll be hearing a summary right now from the Technical Working Group, and then SFO will present an update on their Advanced Air Mobility Program. So this is a chance for the Roundtable, again, to learn more, ask questions, and begin considering how to shape our community participation in the process moving forward. So with that, we'll move on to our next item, SFO Airport Updates. I'd like to welcome Mike Nikarnkat, SFO's Airport Director, and of course, Bert Ganang, the SFO's Airport Noise Abatement Manager, to provide us with the latest information and updates from San Francisco International Airport.
And thank you, Chair Krolik. I really want to express my sincere appreciation and thanks to the collaboration and meaningful dialogue that we've had in this group as well. Really appreciate the welcome that I've received in my first year as new airport director. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. I spent the time locally here in Millbrae, made turkey, and ate way too much, and hope everybody had the same opportunity to do that as well. We also had a very busy Thanksgiving at SFO. If you look at the 11-day period between November 20th through the Monday after Thanksgiving, we served 1.8 million total passengers. That's arriving and departing passengers, which represented an all-time high for us. That surpassed the 2019 pre-pandemic peak of 1.78 million. So we surpassed that record, and then we're also expecting to surpass the winter holiday peak that we had in the pre-pandemic period as well. So definitely a busy year for SFO. When you look at the passengers, but when you look at the flights, we're not quite back to pre-pandemic levels yet. We are at 92% of pre-pandemic. So more passengers, but only 92% of flights during the same period in 2019. Next, I also want to talk about some runway construction that we're doing next year and give advanced lead time for further discussion of this item. In our February meeting, we will be bringing our project manager to talk about this in greater detail, but we have a need to repave runway 1 right to do repaving and necessary improvements, and for safety reasons, as we repave 1 right, we're also going to have to close the parallel runway 1 left. For takeoffs and landings. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't use the taxiways. The taxiways will still be operational, and we can use parts of the runways as taxiways, but for a period of up to 6 months, 1 right and 1 left will be closed because of this necessary repaving we're going to have to do next year, and that'll result in flights operating off of runways 28 left and right during that time period. But like I said, this is just preliminary information that I wanted to share with everyone in this committee. We'll bring our technical expert project manager to talk about it in greater detail at our February meeting. Also, Super Bowl 60 is upon us next year as well. We have been hosting planning meetings with the NFL, the Federal Administration, Aviation Administration, as well as our airline partners, and the intent is to ensure that our commercial airline flights are not impacted because of the activity that we're going to see during the Super Bowl. It's the same process that we implemented for Super Bowl 50 that also took place in the Bay Area and worked well. So we're following that same playbook and anticipate smooth operations during the Super Bowl period. Some new airline routes that we're expecting this year as well as next year. United Airlines will be launching a seasonal flight to Adelaide, Australia starting December 11th. That's 3 flights per week on a 787 aircraft, arriving at 11:15 a.m. and departing at 11:05 p.m. And then you may have heard in the news that LOT Polish Airlines announced seasonal nonstop flights to Warsaw starting May 6th of 2026. That's 4 flights per week on a 787 aircraft, arriving at 11:15 a.m. and also departing at 11:05 p.m. So roughly the same time as the other flight. And that is all I have, Chair Krolik.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much to our director, and well done. That was a very, very busy week. Bert, do you have some updates for us as well?
Yes, ma'am, I do. So let's go ahead and get this into presentation mode. There we are. Thank you. All right, so for the noise office, we're going to be presenting a few things to you tonight. The first 2 bullet points we'll present now. We'll have the TWG update from the chair, and then we'll follow up with my colleague here, Anwar Elgonemy, who will present on our, the first three will be presented now. The last one will be presented after the update from the chair of the TWG. And that's Anwar Elgonemy. He'll be presenting on advanced air mobility and EV tolls. So, without further ado, the Noise Office exposure map update. We have received from the FAA permission to go ahead and use our noise exposure map for the current year. The illusion there was that we are to go ahead and proceed with a update. So, these are time consuming if done right. We are going to do it right. It'll take about a year. We'll be presenting our information to the roundtable, working with the roundtable, and then doing public meetings, most likely here, and much like we did the last time we did it, and that would be 2014, I think it was. And so we're looking forward to that. Our noise insulation program update, we're going to be talking about the repair replacement, the Second Chance Initiative, and the expanded eligibility. We're going ahead and use the graphs like we did last time. We did add some additional information on the graphs, such as the mathematical changes. So the design phase, we added 2. Out for bid is still 22. Currently in construction, went down by 9 because we had the total completed changed by 9. The total in the works went down by 7 as well, because they came out with the total completed. And when I started having some problems with math, my colleague William here went ahead and explained to me, well, if you look at the 2 and the 7 and the 9 and the plus 9, you get it. And so I did, and it helped quite a bit. We're looking at here in 7 in San Bruno, South San Francisco had 93 as far as the completed properties. Properties being treated on the left side, Daly City had 1, San Bruno 3, South San Francisco 47. The Second Chance Initiative, those are the units that were not treated in the previous phases. And so we have 75 out for design and 75 out for works. Total completed 2019 to present 110. The satisfaction rate's 97.14%, so I'm happy to see that. And you can see the numbers, units in treatment progress, 75 with South San Francisco. South San Francisco had 76, and then Daly City 7, Millbrae 3, San Bruno 24. For the expanded eligibility, homes treated before 1993, re-insulation of those. The only real changes were adding one in the currently in construction, which added one in the works, and the satisfaction rate's 96.67. South San Francisco has taken the lion's share here as well, 395 in the potentially eligible, 1 in Daly City, Millbrae with 59, and then San Bruno 76. Completed or being treated rather. South San Francisco 73, Millbrae 11, San Bruno had 3. And that would be it for me. I will go ahead and change gears here. As I'm doing that, I would like to introduce my colleague and our consultant, Van McLeod, who is going to present on our GBAS update. And that is here with the... Had to change gears to Acrobat for this one. And so, Van, if you wouldn't mind turning on your microphone. She works for Lean Corporation, former air traffic controller in Northern California, TRACON. She'll go ahead and do the presentation for our GBAS, which we haven't had in a long time. Those of you not aware of what GBAS is Ground-Based Augmentation System. It's a GPS-based approach system. Holds a lot of potential for having non-standard approaches, such as curved approaches, different altitudes, different touchdown points. Not there yet, but holds that potential. There are no departures certified under GBAS at this time, only arrivals. So without further ado, Than?
Good evening. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Let me know if I need to speak any louder.
You're
like
good.
Bert said, okay, good. Thank you. Like Bert said, my background, I am currently working for Lean Corporation. I'm support for that, and my projects mostly center around San Francisco. Prior to that, I did retire in 2024, at the end of 2024 from the FAA. I was 35 years in the FAA, and 24 of those were at the approach control that works San Francisco Airport at Northern California TRACON. I was the airspace and procedures manager there, so I'm pretty familiar with procedures. And I did work on all of these GBAS procedures as Lean was developing them. Go ahead, Bert. Thanks. So we're going to just do a quick procedure review because it has been a while and some of you may not even be familiar with the procedures that have been published and the procedures that have been submitted to be published. Then we'll give you a status of where GBAS is right now, what GBAS Cat 2 is looking like, and then our next steps.
And GBAS Cat 2 is what then?
We'll get into that, but it's right now you can't use GBAS for when the weather minimums drop down below 200 feet, when you have a ceiling below 200 feet. So for right now you have an ILS Cat 2 and an ILS Cat 3, and those let aircraft come in guided when the weather is real bad. Right now, there are no GBAS Cat 2 procedures in the NASA in the United States. There are in Europe, but there aren't in the United States. San Francisco, we have been trying to get a Cat 2, to try to get approval, try to get the FAA to look into certifying for Category 2 approaches at San Francisco.
Thank you, Than.
So these are the currently 4 published procedures. These are published. They're actually in use. The pilots request them, but they are overlays of existing procedures. So you don't really notice when an aircraft is flying this GLS versus if they're flying an RNAV or they're flying the ILS. You can't really tell the difference. This was kind of our first step in getting GLS procedures here. You make them the same so that it's easier for the controllers to learn them. It's easier for the pilots, and you don't have a million procedures and different routes flying to the same runway. And it lets the system break in, and it gets us confidence. And then we hoped that we would just immediately flow into more innovative approaches. And the whole goal being, let's develop some approaches that are more noise sensitive and better for the community. As it stands, we only have these 4. We did submit, and you can go ahead and, we did submit a group of more innovative procedures, and these aren't even the most innovative. We kind of broke the innovative procedures into phases, some of them easier to do, and then as we got more experience, they would get a little bit better and a little bit better. One of the big asks always is from the airport and the community is to take aircraft down the bay as much, take them over the water as much as possible and instead of over land. The controllers do that. That is actually noise abatement procedure. The approach control does have a noise abatement procedure that says that the controllers need to take aircraft down the bay. Part of the problem with it today is that is a manual procedure. So the controllers take them off of a published procedure and then they vector them and then they manually descend them down and then they'll turn them. They have to turn them base and then they have to turn them to intercept some kind of an approach to get them lined up with the runway. It's a little labor intensive, but even more than that, it's not a repeatable, predictable, and it's not something the airplane can fly. So not only is the controller manually doing this, the pilots are also manually doing it. And so the industry would really like to see something that the airplane can fly. It has vertical guidance. It can make sure the airplane's at the altitude it's supposed to be. And it also has lateral guidance. So that's what we're hoping, and GLS can do this. So we've designed a GLS down the bay, and we've designed tools that will help the controller be able to use the GLS down the bay. And so we were really looking forward to that being published. These were submitted in 2023. I believe they were supposed to be published at the end of 2024. They now are on indefinite hold, and I will get to that. But these are ones that we actually have already submitted to the FAA. They already are designed. They were designed in a work group. Both the FAA was involved, the communities were involved to some extent, not so much in the design process, but their input was definitely asked for and solicited throughout the process. Also flight standards and industry was involved. So then we also did, there's another noise abatement procedure for San Francisco are these charted visual procedures. And again, these are typically manually flown. The airplane can't fly it, and so sometimes they're not flown very accurately. A lot of times the controller has a difficult time getting aircraft on them exactly right. And so we designed GLS procedures that took those same flight paths, and so they're more noise-friendly procedures, and now we have a GLS again for repeatability and for ease in the cockpit. Then the RNAV Yankee approach, the GLS version of an existing RNAV Yankee, that is kind of an offset approach. Again, it comes from the south and the east, and it kind of pushes aircraft over the water so that they're a little more offset and not flying so close to the shoreline. And then runway 10 has always been a problem. When we do go to runway 10, there are not very many approaches to runway 10. So we used GLS to develop precision approaches, and those are offset approaches also. We did have another one that was pulled, and it's the GLS version of the Quiet Bridge, and that you're probably, of our charted visuals, that's probably the one you're most familiar with. It comes from the east. There is a United Airlines FMS version of this right now, and that makes it very handy. United shares that approach with all the other carriers, and it's very nice in the cockpit. It is a visual approach, which is helpful to the controllers, but the airplanes can fly it. We were going to make a GLS version of that. However, the FAA, actually one of the last things I worked on before I retired was doing an RNAV version of it and amending it. We kind of offset it a little bit more to the north, made it a little more straight in. And that does have a publication date. That is now, it looks like July of 2026. It's supposed to be published. So the GLS version was pulled just because the changes that were made kind of took it out of the criteria for GLS. Yeah, thanks. So the status of innovative. So as I mentioned, we had that phase of innovative approaches, and then we also have a group of approaches that have not yet been submitted to be published. And some of those will have kind of higher glide path angles. So they might look like an existing approach, but the aircraft are actually coming in higher. So especially off the Surfer, for example, they might have to be at side-by at 5,000. Well, let's look at raising that to 6,000, and let's look at keeping the aircraft a little higher and maybe doing a little bit steeper. GLS gives us that ability. We have a group of those procedures too, but they have not even been submitted to the FAA because in early 2025, the FAA suspended pretty much all procedures, not just GLS and not just GBAS procedures, but they had a group of safety case procedures. These are procedures throughout the entire nation where there's some reason that it has to be updated. There's some documented safety issue with it. So they basically put everything on hold and they started working just on those. And then the FAA kind of told us, by then I wasn't in the FAA, so I learned the same way everyone else did, that GBAS itself was kind of on hold. The FAA doesn't own GBAS at San Francisco. The airport has paid for this. The FAA doesn't own it. And we kind of were working through reimbursable agreements to get some of this stuff done. And the FAA just kind of put all that on hold. They don't know when they're going to start again or if they're going to start again supporting GBAS projects. So they took our Group 1 innovative approaches that were supposed to be published, and they still have them, but they're just sitting there not being worked on. We have reached out, and we are hoping to get the industry, lean, the airports, and this is throughout the nation. It's not just San Francisco that's in this dilemma, but we've invested a lot of money. There's a lot of great potential here. We'd really like to pressure the FAA to resume its support for GBAS. Then there's a GBAS Cat 2, and I'll just like I mentioned, it allows procedures when the weather is even worse, and there is ICAO standards for Cat 2, but there aren't any FAA standards. And so the FAA doesn't just take ICAO standards. Those kind of become what we call SARPs. They're recommended procedures, but they're not FAA. They're not regulated in the United States. So the FAA will look at what ICAO does, and it may change it. It may make criteria even more stringent, which happens a lot of times. And so they have not even started that criteria. So before we can even look at Cat 2, we have to get the FAA to even develop some criteria so that we can develop the procedures to meet that criteria. And that work has not happened. So we had some Cat 2 procedures in our next phase of innovative procedures, and we are going to probably pull those out. We don't want to delay. If we can get the FAA to resume working with us on GBAS, we don't want to delay anything. So we'll separate out the Cat 2 stuff, and we'll submit all the other innovative procedures, and we'll continue on, and then we'll keep pressing to try to get some Cat 2 criteria. So the last slide is just what are we doing? We are trying to do outreach to the airlines and airports to make a business case for GBAS. There's a Park Nav work group, and that's really, it's a national work group. It has FAA members, has industry. I'm on that work group also, and we're working on a revised white paper to give to the administration, basically outlining a lot of not just the fiscal advantages of GBAS, but the safety advantages of GBAS. We're working with New York, New Jersey, and Houston. We hope to present also an efficiency case, especially during ILS outages. So we've been collecting data on when there's outages of conventional equipment, how GBAS has been able to come in and kind of save the day there. And we will continue to converse with the FAA, and we are encouraging them with a resumption. We have one meeting scheduled. The FAA is going to participate, and it's coming up on January 21st. So hopefully we'll have some good news after that meeting. And that's really all I had.
All right, Madam Chair, if you would like to ask Than any questions or me any questions on my presentation.
Thank you, Than, for that report, even though it's a frustrating situation with the federal government. And thank you, Bert, for your report. Do any of the Roundtable members have any questions for either Than or Bert? All right, any members of the public have any questions?
Yes, we have one member on Zoom, Miss Mary Jo Fremont. Miss Fremont, please go ahead.
All right.
Thank you, Mary Jo Fremont. First, Than, it is so great to have you back in a different capacity because you have such a wealth of knowledge and you're so great. So I'm very glad to see you tonight. My question is very simple on the GLS 28 W28 which is the down the bay. Given that maybe GBAS is on hold for a while, how about doing the RNAV version of that GLS, because it's very much the same, similar to what they did with the Quiet Bridge? Is there any opportunity to get the FAA to do that and dissociate that down the bay from the GLS? Thank you.
Thank you. That seems to be a question for Than. Than, did you get that
Yes.
question?
Yes, I did, and thank you for asking, Mary Jo. Yes, I probably should have mentioned it, because when they did put our innovative procedures on hold, we had already submitted for an RNP, so basically the RNAV and the GLS were going to be identical for the down the bay. And when they put the GLS on hold, we did break off the RNP version, the RNAV version of that, and we did submit that, and that is still going forward. It wasn't one considered a safety case, so it wasn't given the highest priority, but it hasn't been, it's not on indefinite hold. It is in the queue to be developed. So yes, we are still pushing for the down the bay.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and for the answer. Than, do you think it would be helpful if this body wrote a letter to our senators, our congressperson, asking them to encourage the FAA to take some action on this? We'd be happy to do that.
Yes, I very much think that it would be helpful. I know that Bert and I have kind of worked on that. We have a draft letter that might be a starting point if the work group or someone is interested, but yes, very much so.
Okay, great. We'll be happy to work on that. Supervisor Spear.
Thank you. You know, at one point we talked about having the two members of Congress that represent San Mateo send representatives. I know that when I was in Congress, we had a representative here at each of the meetings, and that would be helpful for a situation like this, where you create a caucus within the House of members in those areas that have the airports that are concerned about it, and you can make a case through the committee or through letters that are circulated, but it's really important for us to send a letter to each of these members of Congress and ask them directly to please send a representative, because we oftentimes need to communicate with them or communicate with the FAA through them.
Thank you, Supervisor. Vanessa.
So we did send letters out to our local delegation, and we did get confirmation that there was going to be representation at our meetings. I think at sometimes there have been members who are attending via Zoom on some of our calls, but they don't have an opportunity to speak at the full meeting. And also just to reaffirm that we do have a member from the FAA who, although the government was shut down for the last, 59 days, we do have a representative on today. She has emailed us and let us know that hopefully we will get an FAA presentation early next year.
Yes, Carlette, I'm glad that you are online watching, and I don't see a member, I don't see any members of the congressional offices. We did invite everybody. Carlette, did you want to address this?
No, I just want to thank Vanessa for sharing my note to you all. You know, I'm very happy that we are back in the office and resuming our operations, and so we're going to work to be able to participate in the new year.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We have
All
one
right.
more member of the public that would like to make a comment.
Okay,
Mr.
we'll have one
Remy.
more member of the public, and then we're going to move on to another issue.
Thank you, Mr. Remy Tan.
Hello again, Remy Tan, architect and resident of North Pacifica. Just wanted to make a couple comments on the two added flights for the airport. Was disappointed to find out just tonight that those are 11 o'clock departures after the 10 a.m. to 7 a.m. Quiet time. There are already, dozens of flights that leave the airport via runway 28 left and right that fly over our houses in Pacifica, Daly City, South City. And looking at the noise report from Bert again, the loudest flights are the ones that take off over 28 left and right, going out through the gap. So, hopefully we can work with the FAA and members of Congress to have, better procedures so that to avoid these flights leaving late at night. I do appreciate the report, and I agree with Jackie Spear and the recommendation that we do have people from Congress meet and also have people write the letter to the members of Congress, because this is an ongoing problem for all of our communities. You know, we have the backblast noise we can hear today in this room. I think there's one happening right now from the aircraft taking off runway 1 and 1 right. So it's a huge problem. I mean, in the ideal world, we would have a curfew from 10 to 7. And again, you know, disappointed to hear that we're adding flights, you know, new flights in that time period. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That comment harked back to the San Francisco Director's report. So we are going to move on now to Vice Chair Terry O'Connell to provide an update on the technical working group meeting that was held directly before this meeting.
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to provide a brief update on our most recent technical working group meeting. At this meeting, yes, it's on. At this meeting that happened just prior to this. Okay. We reviewed the SFO current Fly Quiet program. And instead of attempting to evaluate the entire program all at once, we're breaking it into individual components and taking a deep dive into each one over the next several technical working group meetings. This approach gives us the opportunity to better understand the technical framework, encourage more focused discussion, and allows for more public participation. This evening, SFO walked us through the current Fly Quiet scoring system, explaining how the existing metrics have been used and calculated to date. SFO also introduced a set of 5 new scoring categories, which were developed by them in collaboration with the consultant and reflecting long-standing roundtable concerns. Our goal is by the end of the review cycle, the roundtable will be in a strong position to provide clear, concise, consensus-based recommendations to SFO on how to evolve the Fly Quiet program in ways that reflect both community priorities and operational feasibilities. I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear additional input as we continue the work. And if any other of our committee members would like to make a comment, you're certainly welcome to do that.
I want to thank the committee for their work on this. Do any members have any questions for Terry or any additional comments by the TWG members? All right, and the Fly Quiet program will be the subject of the next TWG meeting, which will be held before our next meeting in February, and obviously it's open to everyone. So let's go on to this subject that we're all very interested in and need to be educated about. It's SFO's Advanced Air Mobility Program Overview. So I'm happy to introduce Anwar Elgonemy. He's SFO Hotel Parking and Special Projects Director, and he's going to present us with an update on SFO's AAM program. Welcome, Anwar.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair and Roundtable members. I will walk through where SFO currently stands on advanced air mobility and eVTOL. Just in case you haven't heard of the acronym eVTOL, it stands for Electrical Vertical Takeoff and Landing Aircraft, which essentially are electric helicopters, 100% battery powered, and also they are very quiet. They are about 45 decibels compared to a helicopter, which is about 95. And they travel at speeds of up to 200 miles an hour with a range of 150 miles distance. And more importantly, I will highlight to you where we still have unanswered questions. Our approach at SFO is one of cautious curiosity. We're exploring the new technology, but we're still skeptical that it's ready for large hub integration. In other words, we want to understand the lay of the land. Since June of 2024, we have retained University of California, Berkeley's world-class Transportation Sustainability Research Center, or TSRC. They have been helping us with multiple tasks. The first is advanced air mobility scenario planning. Scenario planning is useful precisely because we acknowledge the future of AAM is uncertain, economically, technologically, and regulatorily. This process helps us avoid premature commitments. We're not choosing an AAM direction, we're preparing for multiple outcomes. In terms of the purpose and process of the scenario planning, which TSRC Berkeley have done for us, the goal isn't to predict the future, it's to admit we can't and still be ready. This work gives us a structured way to test assumptions and avoid falling into the trap of a single optimistic forecast. The early findings, which you can see on slide 4, Berkeley conducted in June of this year a workshop at the airport with more than 30 stakeholders. It included the who's who of the AAM industry in the Bay Area. The stakeholders identified the economy and regulatory environment as critical uncertainties that could impact the future of AAM. And they provided us, as you can see here with the grid on the right side, the 4 fundamental scenarios: slow go, go now, not now, and also slow go. And they are dictated by 2 main variables and the derivatives thereof. One is restrictive regulation, and the other is a vibrant economy, and various variants of those scenarios. The Berkeley workshop surfaced a clear theme, which is growth hinges on regulation and economic conditions that are anything but stable. Even the go now, which you can see in the top right box, is dependent on strong regulatory clarity, which is still far off. And this research will culminate into a 25 to 30-page article, which will be published in a professional journal called Future Transportation, which will explain the full process of the scenario planning and engagement with all the stakeholders. That article will be coming out in Q1 of 2026. The cross-cutting takeaways of the 4 scenarios are: infrastructure is always mentioned, yet no one can articulate who pays for what or when. That's a major concern for us as an airport. Also, public trust remains fragile. Stakeholders expect a slow, fragmented rollout, and we're planning with that realism. In other words, no single agency or jurisdiction can lead AAM alone. There has to be regional integration. On slide 6, in terms of stakeholder flashpoints, the takeaway here is that we call it the ecosystem of advanced air mobility, which includes airports, municipalities, original equipment manufacturers like Joby and Archer, which are based in the Bay Area. NASA, the FAA, community, folks like yourselves. Everybody has a say in this, and we want to move ahead as a region. SFO does not want to carry the full burden on its own, and I'll get to that in a later slide, which touches upon a regional consortium which has been put together to move the whole region ahead in competition with other regions in the United States. The ecosystem is full of competing priorities, as I mentioned. You have the FAA, you have the air taxi manufacturers, you got the communities, also the investors. By them, there is a clash. The investors follow the Silicon Valley pump and dump mentality. They come up with this new technology, they borrow money from the stock market by going public, and they just want to dump it on the consumer and then move on to the next new thing. In this case, okay, that's happened, and they have been able to go public, although their stock prices are still kind of lackluster, low teens. They completely underestimated the level of jurisdiction and scrutiny from the FAA and how long that will take. And also, they are getting ready to engage with communities. I mean, right now, until today, they've been fully focused on certification. There are 5 levels of FAA certification for each of these aircraft. Joby is at level 4. Archer is at the end of level 3. Each level of certification costs $1 billion. Their cash burn rate per day is $2 million. So obviously, as time goes on, they have to borrow more money, right? And at the same time, now they are starting to focus on, okay, let's get public trust, because that is critical, and the community support. Because without that, this business model has no future. And this lack of alignment reinforces our view that scaling AAM around major airports will be gradual and iterative. I would say, Joby will get full certification maybe by mid-2027. And then that's after reaching 5 levels of certification. Then they have to do 1 full year of actual commercial flight testing with a live pilot and 4 human beings on the aircraft itself. And they're currently doing that in Marina by Monterey. Archer's doing it in Salinas. They did get a loophole with the FAA in terms of certification credits, and they're going to start flying in Dubai in Q1 of next year. And they also built a very large vertiport right next to Dubai Airport. But that's all money, and they can do what they want, and we'll see. It's a big question mark. Is it actually going to work? In terms of scenario planning, so what I've shared with you so far is what UC Berkeley TSRC has done for us so far. The next steps for scenario planning, they will be reaching out to San Mateo County, to the SFO Roundtable, to the Contra Costa Transportation Agency, and other regional transportation authorities and other community groups on the peninsula as part of this research under our retainment in order to move the whole process forward and to see whether it's viable or not for the community and for the airport. But most importantly for the community. That is our paramount goal, is to get the buy-in and approval of the surrounding communities here of the airport, our neighbors. The next phase focuses on tightening definitions of success, clarifying regional responsibilities, and identifying who needs to be at the table. We're particularly concerned about fragmented planning, overbuilding vertiports, or misaligning land use that could create long-term headaches. Also, real quick here, as part of their work, they managed a hackathon process, which is a time-bound event where teams attempt to solve a problem. And this was broadcast worldwide, and they answered 2 questions. Understanding future demand for AM and integrating AM with other modes, and also understanding the economic and financial viability of AM in the Bay Area. And there were 2 winning teams. There was NYU Stern School of Business, and I'm happy to share through Bert these hackathons. They're very technical, they're very detailed, but they're extremely well done, and they're rich with data. And then the number 2 runner-up was a leading business school in the Netherlands. The hackathon was helpful, but it also exposed major uncertainties around demand use, cases, and consumer adoption. It confirmed that researchers can't yet define the business case for AAM in a large hub environment like SFO. Some of the policies they did highlight in the hackathons, which came through, are equity considerations, public acceptance, market segmentation, and safety concerns. They did highlight those as the top 4. And clearly air connectivity and demand analysis at SFO. And their conclusion was initially, there are 3 stages. There's a crawl, walk, and run mode. Crawl mode is gonna, if it takes place, it will start in 27, 28, and then 5 years you get into the walk and then the run. Initially, the business and high-income travelers are more likely to use eVTOL initially. UC Berkeley TSRC are going to conduct for us, for a fee, a market demand study. It's going to take 18 months, and they are going to interview first at SFO United Airlines, 20,000 United Airlines mileage plus passengers in the lounges, and they're going to do intercept interviews in the terminals to assess, is there real demand for this new technology? This study is essential because we still don't know who the AAM customer is, what they're willing to pay, and what scale is realistic. We are approaching demand with no assumptions. We will let the data, and only the data, drive any future planning. Until we have results, SFO is not planning infrastructure or allocating land. And as you know, however good your concept and technology, it is the market that always takes control. Currently, we are submitting as part of a consortium. The White House issued an executive order in June of this year to move advanced air mobility ahead on a regional basis in the United States. There's Ohio, there's Texas, there's Massachusetts, there's New York, there's Florida, there's Texas, there's us. And we are part of a consortium called the American Air Advantage Consortium. The lead applicant is the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics. And it's called the White House EIPP, which stands for eVTOL Integrated Pilot Program. It's a 3-year program. where each region is given the opportunity to work out the supply and demand dynamics. Is there demand? Isn't there demand? Stakeholder engagement, and to see, what is the end use case? Is it going to be passenger use? Is it going to be medical evacuation? Is it going to be cargo? Is it going to be firefighting and so forth? So it's basically it's a big test bed for each region. We've joined the federal EIPP program to learn alongside the region, not to lead infrastructure investment. The consortium allows us to participate without committing capital or land prematurely. And the deadline for submission is December 11th, and it's going to be very competitive and political. And they're going to select 5. The FAA and the NTSB are going to select 5 consortia. And, we'll see what happens, but we are putting our best foot forward. SJC is part of the consortium, UC Berkeley TSRC. We have Contra Costa Transportation Authority. As I mentioned, Caltrans Division of Aeronautics is the lead applicant. DART on the Monterey Peninsula. We have Joby, Archer, Wisk, Aero, Elroy, all those air taxis are also on board. And the advantage that we have compared to the other parts of the US is that we are the only region where these aircraft actually fly. Joby and Archer, they do test flights down on the peninsula. In these other regions, Texas, Florida, they have a bit of a Wild West mentality. They don't have that. So we'll see, and definitely we'll keep you posted on the results, which will come out in 2 months. Our role is intentionally limited. We will contribute expertise, participate in analysis, and act as a test bed, not a developer. This measured involvement lets us understand risks without being financially or operationally exposed. Lastly, we are also going to have the FAA come and do what they call a tabletop exercise. They've done it at LAX, they've done it at Orlando. At Orlando, they evaluated proposed routes for eVTOL operation at 2 proposed vertiport locations. And at LAX, they evaluated eVTOL and vertiport feasibility and operational impact with FAA certified controllers at 5 locations at LAX. Houston Intercontinental is next on the line, and then they're going to come to SFO. And what they look at is a plethora of variables: wake turbulence risks, controller workload, procedural feasibility, interface with commercial aviation and traffic tempo and community impact of these routes, taking off and landing. Very technical. And what they do, it's called a human-in-the-loop process, because the human operator is part of the simulation, not just observing it. So they have experts out of Langley, Oklahoma City, Atlantic City, who actually simulate all these scenarios, and they're in touch with the air traffic control at the airport live with these hypothetical scenarios. So they can come up with the optimal scenario which has the least impact on commercial aviation, which is the bread and butter of all large hubs. In summary, SFO is open to the possibilities of advanced air mobility, but we remain grounded in data, community impact, and operational realism. We look forward to continued dialogue and to sharing what we learn as the federal and regional efforts progress. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Anwar. We've all been very interested in this subject, and it's great to have to have you open it up. Our members of the roundtable have some questions.
To the chair.
Yeah.
So a couple comments. Just want to alert my colleagues. There was actually a hearing today in Washington, D.C. Of the Aviation Subcommittee looking at AMM. And it was very kind of interesting. There was a report that they cited that by 2035, they think that the AAM market will reach about $115 billion annually and create about 280,000 jobs by 2035. They also said that AAM has to be integrated safely and has to have input from state and local communities, which is what we have been saying all along. So even the FAA recognizes that there's going to be some pushback from the local communities and there needs to be some input from us. You know, there needs to be some clarity on the standards that work across the industry. So I was really glad to kind of hear your presentation, because a lot of the things you were saying is what they were saying at the hearing. And so I kind of want to put this in two different buckets. What the FAA and the experts at the hearing were saying is that the delivery service, like medical equipment, is actually far more advanced compared to the actual passenger travel. So I think as we have this discussion, I think we need to kind of separate those categories to take a look at, because it seems like from what we were talking about, the go, no-go kind of conversation, it seems like they were more gung-ho on the medical aspect and the delivery aspect because the technology was far more advanced than the airport side of it, because as you were saying, it's the infrastructure. It's something that still the airports need to catch up on. And one of the things that they were talking about was airport traffic controllers, that they're going to have to hire more airport traffic controllers because of the demand and the volume that these AMs are going to bring into the market. So I kind of wanted just to highlight that in terms of to my colleagues. So I think as we move forward, I think we need to look at kind of those two kind of industries separately and how that would affect us locally, and to continue to have input in how we move forward. So that's all I had, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Mark. Rebecca.
Could you maybe repeat it, because I didn't quite catch it, but maybe go into a little more detail about the noise aspects, because you seem to suggest that they're not very noisy.
Well, one eVTOL emanates 45 decibels. So standalone, it's not noisy. Those of you who might have, I know Mike, we went down to see a test flight. You can't hear anything, right? But the noise comes when there's a cluster. I mentioned earlier that there are 3 phases. There's crawl, walk, and run. Crawl is maybe 8 events an hour, 4 takeoffs, 4 landings, very slow. Run is double, 16. But I asked Joby, okay, what is your run scenario tempo? That's when they hit a certain ROI. They said 80 an hour. You imagine that? So that creates both optical pollution, right? And also, it's just, there's noise pollution emanating. It's like a bunch of bees, right, flying. I don't know if you see Blade Runner or Matrix. That's when it happens. That's when the noise starts to be elevated. So it's more so in the run phase, but we're still way far away from that. That is probably at the earliest 10, 15 years away. There's so many hurdles that they have to go through. As the gentleman here mentioned, it's building public trust. And the narrative is that eVTOL manufacturers, the way for them to build public trust is to start first with organ transplants, transporting cargo and say UPS and Amazon into the boonies, places like North Dakota, southern Montana, and there is a company called Beta Technologies which just went public. They are doing that and they're extremely successful. And also, so the use case is a big question mark. There's no doubt that they're going to reach certification. But what is the use case after that? That is the big question mark. And passenger use, that is the biggest obstacle that they have for various reasons. I'll give you one, is these aircraft don't have space for luggage. What are they doing in Dubai? You won't believe me. They are building roads right under, so you fly from your luxury resort in Dubai to the airport, and they've built special roads where they have these luxury cars transporting your luggage from the resort to the airport. All that is to overcome the lack of baggage space. In the meantime, it's made for, you know, excuse the expression, tech bros who want to commute maybe from San Jose to San Francisco in 10 minutes and pay $140 through the app. So yeah, the use case is yet to be determined. The noise is based on the tempo. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Anwar? Yes.
Hi, I had a question. You mentioned, just given with the certification, could you restate, I think you had mentioned, I wanted to see what the burn rate, I don't know which company it was for, but you mentioned a $2 million a day burn rate. Can you, wasn't sure, you were mentioning Joby and Archer, so if you could talk about the burn rate, and then I think you said for the year. I just didn't know which company you were talking about.
No, I can't, I mean, these companies in general, because they're using the same technology, the biggest cost is in the batteries. You know, each battery costs $3.5 million. They're made out of every single element on the periodic table. It's unbelievable. You can go down to their factory in Sunnyvale of Archer and seeing it being made. It's made by laser, and it takes like a month to make one battery. So that's just an example of why it's so elevated. But the number I gave you is an average cash burn rate per day.
And that was just for both, you were just generalizing for both, that wasn't a specific?
Well, not both. I mean, there are other companies. There's a company like Eve Air Mobility, there's Elroy, there's Whisk. There's tremendous amount of capital invested in R&D.
Okay, so I just wanted to confirm, you said it was about $2 million a day burn rate, and I believe you said a $1 billion a year
Yes.
per level.
Yeah, I mean, for each level of certification, it keeps on going up with tariffs and inflation. So, you know, there is continuous influx of capital from the stock market. You know, they keep on doing stock splits, so they raise more capital. Or, you know, the Archer has Stellantis, for example, behind them, which is the world's largest car manufacturer. They just keep on pouring money. They apparently believe in this technology, right? Or they want to get involved. But it is extremely capital intensive. And if you go down to the manufacturing facility in Marina of Joby, it's like walking through a Rolex watch factory. The amount of millwork and craftsmanship is pretty amazing, right? So that is very high labor cost, and they have the top talent from the top aerospace engineering schools in the United States. So add those two together, you know, this is extremely high cost, and in order to get an ROI, you see, that's why they want to jump to the run phase as quickly as possible. But that ain't going to happen, because they have the crawl phase to go through, they have the walk, and they have the community buy-in, which is absolutely critical. And to this point, they have overlooked it, because they've been so laser focused on certification and technological aspects of the technology. So they have a long way to go and a lot of cash to burn.
Thank you. Yes, Paul.
I've got a quick comment, just to some of the points that were made here. I did some research into Joby a while ago. I think Joby's burning about $200 million every quarter. So that's about $2 million a day, roughly. And I think their biggest investor is Toyota, if I'm not mistaken, at Joby. So they're all backed by somebody pretty big. One of the PR things that they're going to do is, I forgot where I heard this, but they're going to try to transport sports teams that they want. That's a very high profile thing, is like, for instance, the Warriors land at SFO and they've got a game, they could transport them. They don't care about baggage at that point. They're going to be, that's something completely different, but they can transport them and move them from an airport in New York to downtown to play at Madison Square Garden or something like that. But I did have a question for you as well. You talked a lot, so that's one end of the equation could be SFO, of course, which is what your concern is, but they're going somewhere, and that's our concern. And so these helicopters are landing somewhere, and we've been talking here in the past about, do they have the ability, capability, certification to land in a field in Portola Valley or Woodside or San Mateo, which might be, in other words, we saw this with, I remember when Steve Jobs used to fly from Pixar Studios from Palo Alto. He didn't care. He just got in a helicopter and they went across the bay. So if they leave SFO, they're going somewhere, and they just want to go to their facility in Redwood City or their facility in San Jose or wherever it happens to be, and they really don't care as long as they have a small area where they can land. And so that's the other end of the equation that, I mean, I guess you care about it, but we care about it a lot. And so is that being addressed as well through these consortiums? It's not, you're talking about just one end of the equation. The other end is, where are they going? They're going to some office park or some downtown area or some business area, and they don't need a whole lot of room. They can land in a parking lot somewhere.
Well, actually, they can't land on a parking lot. They have to have a designated vertiport, which is approved by Caltrans Division of Aeronautics, which gives a franchise for somebody to operate the vertiport, whether it's a lease structure, whether it's a private developer, or even if it's the municipality itself. So there is a very long vetting process. You can't just land an eVTOL in the middle of nowhere. You have to have this fully vetted vertiport, which in of itself is very expensive. Like in Dubai, they're paying $32 million just to build this vertiport. And the way they're approaching it is, okay, they're building a parking garage next to it. There's retail because you have a catchment market, but that's probably the extreme of the spectrum. Here, let's say if you want to build a vertiport in South San Francisco, which, as you know, Archer, they've signed a non-binding MOU with Kilroy, the real estate developer, for developing 4 vertiports right there. But that is still highly skeptical. I mean, it's I'll just say it. It's hype, right?
Well, they've got to land somewhere.
Well, exactly. But in the meantime,
they can't just leave SFO and come back to SFO. They're going to have to.
Oh yes, yes. And at SFO, and I wanted to mention that with Bert and his group and Nupur, who I don't know if she's online, we've retained airport planner called Landerman Brown. And they are in the process of ranking the optimal sites on SFO for eVTOL landing and takeoff. And there's only one site which has been identified as potentially viable, and that is the FBO, the Fixed Base Operations of Signature. And the good thing about that site is it's right next to the bay. So, once they take off, they can get into the legacy airwaves of the helicopters, which there are some. We do have about 3 helicopters which take off and land at SFO, and it's all medevac, UCSF and Stanford. So if and when SFO does have AAM, which is still a big question mark, and that's why we're going through all this due diligence and understanding the lay of the land, that could be the first site only for the crawl phase. Very slow, under extreme scrutiny, and also we need to take into account the aspect of equity. Initially, as I mentioned, it's going to cater to probably the 0.1% of the population. What about the 99.9% that SFO pours, billions of dollars towards. That is a very, very important factor in the equation.
Thank you. Jackie and then Stephen.
Answered my question. I was curious as to what we're talking about in terms of cost to create one of these billboards. And you said it was like 35 million is what is...
That's at the very high end, Congresswoman, yes.
So it could be even less than you're saying.
Yes.
So I'm concerned that if they're smart, they're going to go directly to Congress. They're going to preempt local jurisdictions from having any kind of control over where they're put. And that's something that I think everyone here needs to be aware of. Are existing heliports on hospitals, for instance, allowed to be used for this purpose now?
No, they're not. No, they have to be. There has to be an official conversion from a helipad, right, into a vertiport. It's a completely different ecosystem, and that is what the FAA is studying now. They're even looking into what they call the low altitude economy. Like China, they are monetizing different strata of the atmosphere, 5,000 feet high, 10,000, 15,000. How many eVTOL can we fly in there? What is going to be their purpose? So the answer is no, you can't just do it. I mean, obviously, you have to build it, and to refine the answer, they range from about 5 million to 30 million in cost.
So in locations like Houston and Florida, where you're calling them the Wild Wild West, ironically,
yes.
How is that happening without any kind of regulatory superstructure?
Well, before I answer that question, can I circulate this?
Sure.
This here is Orlando. They have a brochure already advertising that they're open for business for eVTOL.
So they didn't have any local regulatory
Yes, I was there 2 years ago at a pre-FAA desktop exercise, and I asked, I asked officials from MCO and the planning department, have you done any community outreach? And he goes, what community outreach? We spoke to a couple of condo HOAs, and they said, yeah, build, if it's going to bring in some bucks, build it. It's just, I was blown away. The mindset there is just, it's totally different from here. I don't know if it's too much sun or what, but it's pretty incredible. And the same in Texas. I love Texas, I love Florida, but it's a different...
it's a red state mentality is what it is.
Yeah, and different politics, completely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Anwar. I think you did a fantastic job. Also, SFO for hosting this back in June. I was able to attend. Had a fantastic time. Thought it was absolute brilliant presentation they put on there, which is why I suggested it come to this body so we have a review. Hearing some of the comments from some of my peers, I think, in my personal opinion, I'm not too concerned about SFO embracing this technology. From what I learned back in June, it would be at least 5 years out from SFO being able to have advanced air mobility landing at SFO. I also heard concerns about the grid with the amount of electricity that these vehicles use. You mentioned that they only have a 150-mile span. So imagine, I think you said the break point for the ROI was 80 flights.
Sorry?
The break point for the ROI for these vendors was 80 flights.
Yeah, 80 an hour, they would reach an ROI which is sufficient to cover the cost of capital.
Yeah.
So that's an ROI, I'm guessing probably between 10 and 12%.
So the amount of strain to the grid at SFO, just in electricity, to have these 80 flights happen per hour, I would imagine that would have an impact on SFO, correct? They wouldn't be able to support all these flights as of today?
No. One of the biggest constraints that we have at SFO is we do not have the electrification capacity to accommodate even the walk mode. I mean, I'll give you an example just to put into perspective. Our daily electrical output at SFO is about 50 megawatts a day. That includes everything. One eVTOL with a full charge, to go 150 miles and back would consume 0.5 megawatts. So that's 1% of our entire output. So what we've told the eVTOL manufacturers is that you got to help us out here. We don't even have enough electricity. We are going to build, and Mike, please jump in. We do have plans for a substation because we are planning a Concourse H, which is going to be built on the western side of the airport, but that's going to go fully to the concourse and the ancillary facilities, from what I understand, Mike.
That's correct, Anwar. We have in our capital improvement plan electrical substation upgrades that we need to do in order to increase the electrical capacity of the airport, but it'll take time to bring the capacity up, right? So in doing so, we also need to look at the electrical usage prioritization so that we prioritize the use towards our terminals, towards our facilities first, and so on and so forth, and before we can start looking at a charging infrastructure for the, for example, for the eVTOL. So that all has to come together in a coordinated and sequential way.
Yeah, and also if I could add that we've told the eVTOLs that you need to help us, as I mentioned, and that can be done in the form of bringing in microgrids. There's a company called Siemens, a German, which manufacture these microgrids, which are connected to the local utility companies, in our case PG&E, which would, provide the juice for these eVTOL, which is massive. Because of the batteries. I mean, and they know that. But, with time, battery technology and battery physics will improve. And their hope is that it will minimize the consumption. But as we stand today, we do not have the capacity. And they know that. So they need to help us out.
Correct, and that's what I was told during the June presentation. So it sounds like it's safe to say that they're 5 years out from being able to have clearance to land and operate at SFO, just based off of those constraints with being able to power these vehicles from the electrical grid.
That's a fair statement, yes.
Okay, great. So, in my point of view, knowing that, I'm more concerned about the public-private relationships that some of these vendors like Archer and Joby are going to probably want to pursue with knowing that they're 5 years out to land at SFO. What would stop them from coming to us, the local municipalities, wanting to say, maybe in our case in Millbrae, we need a parking garage for downtown, and parking's a rare commodity here. So why not do a public-private relationship with one of these companies where they put one of these vertipads on top of the parking garage, and then, Millbrae comes up with the parking garage. So that's my greatest concern, the public-private relationship and the impact this has to our region. And how do we monitor and regulate that so we're not impacting all these communities in our neighboring area?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Stephen, because this body has expressed the desire to coordinate a regional response. So it's great to have this information so we can start to work towards that. Appreciate it. Any more questions or comments from the members? I think, do we have one? Okay, I think we have time to take one public comment.
Yes, we have one member on Zoom, Ms. Darlene Yapley, followed by Mr. Remita. Ms.
Go ahead, Darlene.
Thank you, Anwar, for your excellent presentation. As a participant at your workshop and a community stakeholder, I particularly appreciate your balanced and accurate summary of the discussion that took place and presentation. You mentioned the market demand analysis. Now, after I've heard you speak, I feel like you have this covered, but I do want to mention it because I think it's critical. The category of transporting people seems to be very broad and overgeneralized. There needs to be a lot more segmentation. You touched on the luggage, and I feel the same way. Travel varies significantly, so going to the airport for a trip is very different than going to the Super Bowl. One may require sizable luggage, the other does not. Very recently, one of the AAM manufacturers, for the first time ever, stated that they would be able to take 4 passengers with, quote, carry-on luggage. Well, we know that, what does that actually mean? Is it a small backpack or purse that sits on your lap? So I think when the study is done, that needs to be told to your study people so that they can say really whether they'd be able to take this if they couldn't take it very much on their lap. Also, they don't incorporate passenger number. Pricing and willingness to pay for 1 passenger could vary with 2 or 3 passengers, especially when you compare ground options. You get the entire Uber with passengers in their trunk and everything that can fill it. Also, what is the situation for the first mile and the last mile access? Strongly would influence market behavior. What is the elapsed time to get there and the hassle? Travelers need to understand this to really answer the questions of whether they would use it or not. My question is for the FA tabletop exercise on slide 13. Can you share more on community participation that's mentioned? Who is in the community definition and what type of participation do you envision? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Actually, the FAA tabletop exercise will not get as deeply involved in community engagement as UC Berkeley TSRC will. As I mentioned, they will engage with San Mateo County, this roundtable, and active groups up and down the peninsula, which are very concerned about AAM and the noise and the congestion involved, and also transportation authorities. And what they're going to do is assess the demand in the 9 county area, not just San Mateo, but the other 8 counties in the whole Greater Bay Area, and see, is there really demand for this? Because as you mentioned, the air taxis, there has been presumptive demand, which is anecdotal or hearsay, which means that, okay, they've done cell phone studies where you can track when somebody commutes from, say, Livermore to SFO. I've seen them. They have these maps. Okay, 200,000 people commute from Livermore to SFO, therefore X% will use AAM. And we said, really? I mean, how do you know? There's a huge difference between traveling on the ground and traveling at 200 miles an hour at 5,000 feet. Okay, you get there in 10 minutes, but the whole experience is completely different. So what Berkeley is going to do is conduct a very scientific study, again in the 9 county area, to assess the real demand, and also tell us how is the issue. This is another issue which the air taxis are facing, is when you mentioned at the beginning of the flight, the first mile, what happens, what they're envisioning is that it's going to be part of an app on your phone, like Uber, where let's say you want to go from Livermore to SFO. It has 4 seats. Joby has 4 seats. Archer has 5 seats plus a pilot. Miraculously, you and 3 other passengers have to be at the vertiport at the exact same time and want to go to the exact same destination. And the price estimate, they're saying they want to make it the same as Uber Black, which is about 120, 140 bucks. But if the 3 other don't show up, you end up paying the whole bill, which is 400 bucks. Who in this room would pay 400 bucks
Thank
Maybe
you.
Doug would.
We're a little short on time. We've got one more comment before we wrap up, but thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello again, Ramy Tan of Pacifica. Thank you, Anwar. That was a very great detailed report. I am actually very concerned about the noise. I was just over in Bali, Indonesia, and most of the historic sites, they've banned even the little drone things that you fly remote control, and they're a lot less noisier than a drone or AAM the size of a car. So I'm not convinced that 45 dB is actually a real number, and maybe potentially higher. We need to look at every one of the manufacturers and the noise profile for each vehicle, which are probably going to be different from one to the other, based on the physics and the rotor arrangement, et cetera. So I'm very concerned about that. And then it came up in the discussions about Terminal H being done, so that's, again, more gates, more demand on the existing runway and airspace for the, for the large aircraft. So now we're competing airspace. I mean, yes, the plane flies at 30,000, 40,000 feet, most of it, but it's got to get on the ground and pass through 5,000 feet, 10,000 feet. So we have very constrained airspace. We got 3 airports within very close proximity, SFO, Oakland, and San Jose, plus the small general aviation airports, like San Carlos, Palo Alto, East Reed, Hillview, and Oakland and San Francisco as general aviation. So we got all this stuff kind of piled up, and we just had a major crash between a helicopter and a commercial plane. So I'm really concerned about safety, and the noise of all these things, because if they can't fly over the bay,
Right.
they're
going to
be over our houses.
Thank you.
So,
Absolutely.
I
Thank you very
hope
much.
that we're looking at this very closely. Thank you.
And before we adjourn tonight, I'm going to turn things back over to our airport director. He actually has an announcement which I think will make our last speaker very happy.
Chair Crowley, thank you. For the record, I'd like to make a correction in the flight arrival and departure times that I stated in the director's report for LOT Polish Airlines with seasonal nonstop service to Warsaw starting May 6, 2026. 4 flights a week, not arriving at 11:15 a.m., departing at 11:05 p.m., but arriving at 1:50 p.m. or 8:15 p.m., depending on the day, and departing at 3:15 p.m. or 10:15 p.m., depending on the day, so not 11 p.m.
So some good news there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mike. Do any members have any announcements before we adjourn? Yes, Supervisor Spear.
Thank you. Mike mentioned the Super Bowl, and also we're going to have World Cup next year. Each of you has been invited to come to a training on human trafficking. Because we have the airport in our midst, it is a magnet for that. And so it's going to be Fiesta Hall next Monday, 12/9, from 2 to 5.
Great, wonderful thing to do. Thank you very much. I'm going to give a shout out to Doug Yakel, the airport's information officer. I saw you on the news a couple of times over the holiday. You did a very good job. Thank you very much. There being no more pending business of the Roundtable for 2025, happy holidays, happy New Year. Hope to see you again at our next meeting. The technical working group would be at 5:45 and the regular meeting at 7 o'clock on February 4th. We are adjourned.
Time is 8:40.